Hi, and welcome to the Locker Room. I am one of your hosts, Justin Hamm, and thank you for joining us as we journey through tough issues that guys face as athletes and just as everyday humans. Let's welcome our guest today for the first time ever, Shawn Lockett, as he is here today to help us navigate the questions of guys, God, and does it matter? Shawn, thank you so much for taking some time to sit down with us today and just chat. I've known Shawn for couple years now, and we'll go into his background a little bit, but it's just he's one of these amazing athletes, sure, but he's an even better human being. So it's just really exciting to see you. He's a father, he's a former football player. It's just really, really cool to see you out here on this call with me, Shawn. So just why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners a little bit?
Yeah, Justin, man, I appreciate you, man. I am so blessed and honored to be on this podcast. I'm super excited and happy for what you're doing with this outlet and this platform. So a little bit about me: born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. Grew up playing sports. I think the first sport I actually ever did was competitive swimming, which did not last too long. But I fell in love with football. My dad introduced it to me at the age of 8. I almost wanted to quit after the first practice because we ran so much.
Mm,
And he was like, "Come on, like let's just try it for the rest of the week." So that was a Monday, and I ended up actually making varsity by Wednesday. So that was cool at the age of 8, right, as a Pee Wee football player, and then having a pretty good career. My career got cut short a little early at the age, or excuse me, in 8th grade. Had a season-ending injury, which kind of derailed things. And I guess for me as an adult looking back, that was like my first sign of adversity. Um, and then ended up transitioning from a suburban league team being, predominantly around a lot of Caucasian teammates and me probably being one of 4 black or, minorities on the team to then going into the inner city of Springfield to playing at Springfield Central High School where it's a potluck of everything, right? And so
sure.
football, thankfully, was my kind of my in there. Ended up being a 4-year varsity letterman, a 3-year starter, and was blessed enough to go to the pristine at the time American International College, which is super cool. I don't think so. No, still a problem. And so, yeah, ended up going to AIC where I redshirted my first year, was unfortunately hurt. So I had to get a medical
Mm,
redshirt and then had my opportunity, got my number called in 2014, started all 8 games, made the first team rookie team, and was, on track to do some really great things. An unfortunate incident happened where adversity, I guess, number 2 occurred where I was let go from the school due to some financial responsibilities at the school and the athletic department just weren't too clear on with
mm.
me and my family. And so we were kind of just stuck with a bill. And so 2015 was a very weird year for me. Kind of had to grow up, had to find a big boy job, and still wanted to pursue football at the highest level, which is the NFL. And I thought my dreams were over. And so a year later, I got a call from a Bob Kohler in Lehigh Valley in the Pennsylvania area. And he saw my film from one of the websites at the time that were kind of recruiting guys, and I showed up to their final signing camp before training camp, and I got signed that night. And funny enough, it was a crazy experience because it was arena football, and I had no
Mm,
idea what that was, right? And
sure.
so the third time I hit adversity was that same night that I was celebrating this new achievement. I found out my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, right? And
Mm,
so within maybe 8 days, life changed drastically. Mom had passed away 8 days later, and I actually then had to go transition to be a football player. And so from that day up until 2024, when I met our lovely our lovely host, I was able to, just kind of chase my dream. I had a lovely, wonderful 8+ year professional football career in the arena leagues, playing at the highest levels of the AFL, the IFL, and the NAL at its height, winning a championship in 2021, and then came out of retirement in 2024 to, see if I could taste glory again. And we fell short by 5 points. But it was a very, very intense season for me personally. But um, you know, I love it. I love the game. Found the Lord I think my fifth year in the league, which was great too, and being able to share my testimony to other FCA groups, the one I was running in Springfield, the one at U Albany not too long ago and stuff. So God's been doing some great things in my life, and I'm just super excited to be on this to share whatever I can to
Yeah, man.
encourage somebody else.
Well, thank you so much for not only making time, but just for sharing all of that. And
Yeah,
I think a common theme that I heard in all of that is, the adversity. And we live in a world where, uh, life isn't always easy. So
yeah,
talk a little bit about some of those lessons that maybe you learned, maybe the hard way, maybe it just through sports, but like how did adversity affect you and how did you learn to handle it? Because I think, this is a podcast designed specifically for guys. So it's like as
yeah,
young as guys, we deal with it all the time and we
yeah.
can always learn how to deal with it from mistakes, from things that works, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think for me, adversity was kind of like the fuel to the fire, right? And so
Mm,
I was, I think I maybe understood how to deal with adversity when I got older. High school, you're late for a study hall, so now you got to deal with the repercussions, right? Or
mhm.
you genuinely had no way to get to school because you missed the bus and your mom's not bringing you, right? So you're late to school, right? So adversity comes and goes, but I think I was able to learn how to handle it on the football field, right?
Yeah,
And so thankfully, I had a great coach who really helped us mold our mentality when it came to adversity and help us to really hone in on how to handle it on and off the field. And so like it'd be fourth down and we're in practice. And at that time I played both sides of the ball. So like, it kind of like for me, it was an advantage. Like if I'm on defense, I know what third down play we're going to run if it's 3rd and 10. Like I know the
sure.
offensive playbook, right? And vice versa. And so we as the offense didn't convert. And so at that moment, we had to do push-ups, burpees, or whatever it was. And so I think at that moment, like we were like, no, like coach, like run it back. And the coaches were very stunned. So we kind of ran our rack back and we did 12 plays and we ended up scoring and just, dominating at that moment. But I think it translated in life to say, like, just play the next play, right?
Yeah,
We don't obviously don't have enough time to go over, the whole thing, but life for me has hit a lot of adversity and I've had to just play the next play, right?
yeah,
Meaning I've had to just continue to just get up and just continue to walk, right? Because I think at the end of the day, we get so bogged down in this life, especially as men of faith, that we get so bogged down with our failures, with our disappointments, and with our shortcomings that it can overwhelm us, right? But if we get up and play the next play, if we, take another step forward or whatever, I think that allows us to tap into a new level of strength that we may not have
mm,
thought we had. And thanks to you for reminding me of that for me. But I think it also just it kind of builds that tough skin spiritually and in the natural realm as well.
what do you think makes it hard for people to move on to that next play? Like what makes it hard for people to be able to pick themselves up and keep going?
I think it's we are our biggest critics.
Mm,
So I think on the field, right, it's like, well, I worked really hard at this play, at this technique, at this strategy that coach or myself thought was going to be beneficial, and it just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. So now you play it over in your head. I should have did it this way. I should have went left when I should have went right, or I should have went right when I should have went left. I should have went straight or whatever. And I think that we build this calluses around our brains to just breathe and say it's okay,
mm,
right? And I think in life we do the same thing about the mistakes we make. Like, man, I should have never went here, or I should have never picked up the phone, or I should have never dot dot dot, right? And you all can feel that in yourself. But I
sure.
think that we are our biggest critics. So we overthink it so much that we're like, man, I wish we could go back in time. And if you're a movie buff like me, like Back to the Future was my jam, right?
Mm,
All three of them, I think. Because I'm like, man, that would be super cool if I could go back to like 10 years old, right? And kind of redo things, but that's just not how it works, right? And so thankfully we do serve a God that he erases our sin by the blood of Christ, right? And so from as far as east is to the west. So I think if we can start to really believe what the word of God says, that we
mm,
have a forgiving, loving father who's just and righteous, right? But he's also a loving father, right? So I think if we can conceptualize that, then we can start to be like, you know what, like that mistake that was super horrible in my life that that feel like derailed me, it really isn't that bad. And like
right.
I can actually come back from this.
Yeah, That's a great way to that's a great segue actually, truthfully, to talk about the whole idea of, how faith can come into this as well.
Yeah.
Because I know even just from a secular standpoint, I mean my favorite athlete, well, not my favorite athlete, in my opinion, the best basketball player of all time is Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant's my favorite athlete, but Michael Jordan's is the GOAT. And he had a quote that says, "I never lose, I either win or I learn." And it's like that's even the secular mentality, right? Just from like the idea of, being able to separate yourself from failure. But taking it even deeper, kind of like what you were just sharing, it's like if we have that relationship with Jesus and we have that perfect, all-loving Father that knows what's good for us, that has a plan for us, that has a purpose and a future, right? If we focus on that, it does make it a little bit easier. But there's things I think that we can sometimes either do to ourselves or we begin to, get covered in, taking it outside of the realm of sports, just in the everyday life, right? Like the shame of our past mistakes can sometimes weigh us down. And then we don't feel like we're worthy. And then our worth begins to get affected and our value begins to get affected. And before long, here we are, we're in adversity, whether it's our doing or not, somebody else, it could just be a situation that everyday life has. Maybe it's a situation we created, but now all of a sudden our value is completely gone because we have the wrong perspective. Like, oh, what's wrong with me? And I think
Right.
that's super dangerous, especially as guys, because I think that's how we internalize things.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll just be very transparent to anyone listening out here, right? I am a newly father, like Justin had mentioned, but I didn't do it God's way, right? And so
Mm,
for me, I'm still in this process of trying to just not look at the act, not
hmm
the gift, but the act where I missed the mark and where I could the act was the mistake, right? And so knowing what the Lord was prompting me to do and to my disobedience, right, led me to now having a beautiful gift. However, right, it has also left residue mentally for me to say, man, like had I listened, what where would I be, right? But I think that having that faith in the Lord, knowing that like he's a forgiving father, you got to forgive yourself, right? And
Yeah.
you got to move on because at the end of the day, there's it's bigger than you, and I'm learning that day to day, it's bigger than me, right? And so I have to know that if I stay in a place of defeat, then everyone else around me could also potentially be affected by that mentality, right? And so I think football was specifically tailored for me to do because I think I've been able to handle a lot of my mistakes with mentalities built over time through sports, right? And again, like I said, the biggest one is playing the next play, right? Like going through the
Yeah.
next day. Like Lord willing, I get blessed with another 24 hours. So what are you going to do with that 24 hours the next day to put your best foot forward? Mentally, physically, spiritually, etc. And then really just trusting God that like what the enemy meant for evil, God is really going to turn for your good, right? And
Yeah.
believing what the word says, right? Like knowing that like God started something in you, He's going to finish it, no matter what we humanly see.
Yeah.
I think the rest is we got to leave it to the big guy.
What do you think makes it hard? Because you're absolutely right, right? Like if we get that 24 hours, if we waste any second of that wishing
Yeah,
or hoping we could undo something that's already happened, we're going to miss out
yeah,
on what could happen next.
yeah,
And that's just from like a logical standpoint. But
yeah.
what do you think makes it hard, specifically for guys, for athletes, for competitive people, right? Who macho guys, whatever society says. What makes it hard to have that trust and that belief that, God will work all things together for good to those who love him, for those who are called
It
according to his purpose.
Speaking to me, it's pride. It's that
Mm,
ego. It's that machismo. It's that I can do this. You've given me these giftings. You've given me these talents. You've given me these abilities. I can do this. But
mm,
when you really take a step back, right, you can't, right? Like again, we don't have enough time, but to go through every nook and cranny of my professional career, I should never have been. I shouldn't have. I should not have had a career after
mm,
my first year. Like I was horrible, right? I was mentally not there. I was physically not there. I was just not it. But for some reason, God allowed there to be an extended period of time over my career where I was there, but I still got in the way because I was prideful. I was
mm.
full of ego, and I was just like, no, I can do this. I can do this without you. And I had to realize I can't do without him. Like, I can't lift the weights without you. I can't get up in the morning without you. I can't. I just can't do it without you, right? So I think that's what really gets in the way, especially for us guys, is that we are fixers, we're doers, we want to do things, especially in sports, right? We work so hard as kids. We have our childhood superheroes on the court, on the field, etc. And like that's what we want to do. That's what we want to be. And I think that we get so stuck on that we get in the way of our own development in that. And even in life, like, if parents or role models, like we get in the way of what the process is because we are not willing to just take it day by day, right? Take the wins with the wins, take the losses with the losses, learn from both and moving forward. So yeah.
So just kind of like just kind of to look at it from another perspective, right? Like, could there be any potential? Like, I'm all for, and you know it, right? I'm a coach now. You
Mhm.
played highest level football. Just that idea of, it's easy to focus on the next play, but sometimes if we're not careful, we end up tamping down maybe
Yeah,
lessons we could learn. So
absolutely.
how do we balance that, right? Like not letting it affect us, not looking back saying I wish I could do it over, but then taking that ability to process it and say, hey, if I'm in this situation again, kind of like watching film,
Yes,
he blitzed the A gap last time. Like, what can I do
absolutely.
differently this time?
Absolutely. Watching the film portion is super key, right? So it's like learning from your mistakes and understanding like if I'm ever in this position again, we're not missing the mark,
Hmm.
right? So it's like setting up different strategies and boundaries or whatever. But just like I said, having a plan, having a team around you, having a support group around you. But I think it really just goes down to uh like I said, just learning from your mistakes, but not in a negative sense. Like, okay, like the grace of God covered this, right? So now knowing if I'm ever in this position again, like be like choose wisely, right? Like again,
Yeah.
being man enough to know that like I have the choice to make whatever decision I want, but what decision is going to cost me eternity? And that for me is
Mm.
like where I'm at now, right? Like before it was like, oh, thinking kind of like on the earthly sense, like consequences, right? Good and bad. But then I'm thinking like, no, like this could cost you eternity. So is it
Yeah.
worth it? Right? Is it worth it in a good sense? And is it worth it in a bad sense? Right. And I think for me, that's where I hold myself to. And again, like, it's not telling me or saying that I'm, above anybody. It's just like that's the boundary I've had to put around me
Hmm.
because I know
Yeah.
me,
Sure.
and I know that there are boundaries and safeguards that I needed to set for myself personally so that I know that if I am in situations that kind of like are a revolving door, I know how to handle them. I
Yeah.
know how to, and I also know that if you fall and you stumble, that there's grace, right? There's room for improvement, but there's also true grace in knowing that like if my heart is really truly repentive, then the way back to the cross is just turning around and walking straight and keeping your eyes on the Lord. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's good. That's good advice. And I think it's something, those boundaries, right? For some people, those might look different, but I think you nailed it, right? Like in, football, basketball, whatever the team sports are, like you could be the best individual athlete, but if you don't have people around you that got your back, that know you, that understand the play, that are trying to, have the same result that you are, it makes it so much harder. So like
Absolutely.
in terms of like finding those people, finding those teammates, it's a little different in everyday life, but how important do you think it is to have people in your corner that you can trust, that you can go to when you need some help?
It's super important. I know as a young guy, right? I'll briefly talk about sports. Like when I was a young guy, when I got into the league, like I wanted to hang out with the veterans and not to
Mm,
be like an annoying, but because I wanted to last long. I was playing with guys that I watched on YouTube, and like I'm sitting in the locker room with this guy and that guy. My locker next to this guy, right? And so like I was super stoked about it, but then I'm like, he's been in the league for X amount of years, and he got a cup of coffee at the NFL. So like I got to be around him, right? So I'd
yeah.
go and be just a sponge and just soak up all the information on the field, off the field, right? And when I left my last year in 24, like I had that old head, that OG mentality of like, if you're not here to soak up all that I got, pause, because you got to be sure. Then what are you? You got to be sure.
Tell me you
then
work
what
with
am I?
kids without telling me you work with
Listen,
kids.
but no, like I'm like, if you guys don't really understand, like take this opportunity because like I've been around, I've seen most of it, right? Take this opportunity. And I think even when it comes to life, like being around like gentlemen like you, right? Like you've got a great testimony. And like for me, it's helped me, right? And other gentlemen knowing that I can go to at the time of need, prayer, correction, right?
Yeah,
It just again, like you got to be willing to want to be better.
yeah,
And I think I learned that quality from my dad. Like if you like closed mouths don't get fed, right? And I can't tell you everything inside of a toolbox, but I can tell you a good amount. But that was just because I wanted to learn and be around a man who knew how to fix things around the house or different things. And so I think if us as guys, we get to a place where we want to mature more in all facets of life, that means that we just need to go out and seek the help in all the areas, whether it be spiritual, whether it be physical, athletically, financial, etc. Just go ask. What's the
yeah,
harm in asking, right?
yeah. If you want something you've never had, you got to do something you've never done. So let's go
Yeah, you
find
got to go.
somebody that's done
Yeah,
it.
absolutely,
I love that. I love that.
absolutely.
Well, I know you're on your lunch break, so I don't want to take too much more of your time, Shawn. But I don't want to end it. We could keep going, but let's just to
Absolutely.
honor that time. So before we jump out of here in like an awkward transition, just is there any last kind of comments or thoughts that you might want to just leave us with before we end this interview?
I think the biggest thing for me is knowing that whatever sport you're in, whatever sport you're doing, whether you're coaching, playing, whatever it may be, do it for the glory of the Lord.
Mm,
I did not play in the NFL. Okay, I did not make millions of dollars and all the stuff that we see on TV. However, I could go away tomorrow, but I can go away knowing that I had a wonderful career playing professional football and just football in general, right? But I think the biggest thing is doing it for the glory of God. When I came to Christ as a professional athlete, it changed my perspective. I didn't care about the wins and loss column, right? I cared that my teammates all were alive at the end of the game. I was thankful that I got to play in front of family, friends, and then play in front of people that took their time out, sacrificed their money to spend time with their family at our games, right? I was able to play in front of a lot of great crowds, travel places I'd never been, just live a life that, you know, I didn't think I was gonna be able to live, right? And so I think again, my encouragement would be to really dedicate your careers, coaching, playing to the Lord, and just let Him do His thing. You may hit the mountaintop, or you may not. However, whatever impact that you leave on the game, that's you got to physically do that portion. But the other stuff,
mm,
you gotta let God just be God and do everything to glorify him, whether it's a win,
yeah,
whether it's a loss, whether it's a foul, whether it's time in the penalty box, whatever it may be, like
yeah.
glorify him and just watch him work. And the the rest is history. So
Yeah, man, that's good. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, man.
Well, again, Shawn, thank you so much for taking some time on your lunch break in between teaching. He's a teacher too, folks. This guy does it all. He's pro football player, friend, dad,
Yes.
teacher, and
Yeah.
he's making time to share with you what God has on his heart. So, Shawn, thank you again so much, brother. And
Yes.
I know I'll talk to you soon, but maybe we can schedule another time to get you back on the podcast.
Part two is definitely needed, for sure. I would love to just share any stories or anything else to, like I said, to continue to encourage the next generation of athletes and men of God. So yeah,
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much, brother. And as always, our episodes drop every Tuesday. So keep an eye out, and this one will be dropping probably in a week or two. So thank you so much,
awesome.
Shawn. We'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you. Yes, sir. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
So.